In this video, I'm going to go over which channel you should choose for your given outbound initiative. There are a ton of channels out there in which you can send messages: LinkedIn, email, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, passenger pigeon, knocking on doors, you get it. There are so many different ways you can reach out to people for a given sales initiative, but each of them have their pros and cons. So I'm going to focus specifically on the ones that involve messaging in some capacity and which ones I think are the most effective for your use case. The first one we're going to go into is email. Email is by far the most popular cold outbound mechanism, and it's for good reason. You can send out a lot of them, and you can send them out to pretty much anybody. I mean, essentially anybody who works in B2B will have an email, and I'd be shocked if most of them didn't, and they're quite easy to find relative to maybe other ways of contacting people. So email is mostly effective for one of two use cases. The first one is if you're reaching out to a lot of people. Right? So like if you're reaching out at scale to maybe hundreds, if not thousands of people, email is a tool that allows you to do that the best. A lot of other social media accounts have a big throttle and big limit on how many messages you can send out. But email really doesn't have that if you set up the correct infrastructure. The second thing is if you're reaching out to people who don't have social accounts or people who don't generally interact on socials. So if they don't have a LinkedIn, if they don't have Instagram, if they don't have Facebook, email is a great way to reach out to them. So usually when I'm talking to clients about which channel they should use, I recommend email when they want to send high scale messaging. If you want to reach out to hundreds or thousands of people a day, email is definitely the channel for you. The next one we're going to go into is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is also just an incredible outbound channel if you use it correctly. But of course, one of the downsides is you cannot send nearly as many LinkedIn messages as you could email messages in a given day, even if your setup's incredible. So usually I tell people if you have a smaller group of people you want to reach out to, much more hyper-targeted messaging, a more segmented ICP, then I would go use LinkedIn. LinkedIn can be incredibly effective. The general, I'd say overall positive response rates are higher than email. Let's say if you send the same copy over both channels. And I'd highly recommend using it for anybody who's working in B2B, especially more like corporate B2B, so tech, real estate, finance. People respond quite well on LinkedIn relative to industries that might be less on LinkedIn. So let's say local businesses like HVAC, plumbing, you get the gist. So anyway, I would highly, highly recommend using LinkedIn for that use case. The third one is Instagram. Instagram is incredible for creator outreach or outreach where people are often more on their socials, like their personal socials, than their business socials. So LinkedIn's great for people who are really in the business world, let's say. But those who are maybe creators or operating more on LinkedIn or operating more on, let's say, social, like more social, generic social profiles, Instagram would be great for that. However, it's a lot harder to automate, right? So like you can send LinkedIn and email messages quite easily, and it doesn't really require a ton of work to automate that. But Instagram really works on you not sending automated messaging. They really don't want you to send high scale outbound on Instagram. Like that's like the company itself would prefer if you didn't, right? So sending out that sort of messaging is really good for low scale and you can't really automate it. So I would recommend using it for, again, more like social, generic social based outreach. Twitter, pretty much the same thing. I would say tech in particular is really great for Twitter. So I used to run a campaign on all the YC founders, all the Y Combinator founders and they're pretty much all on Twitter. And reaching out to them on Twitter was particularly good in comparison to other channels because they operated more on Twitter. So in short, between those four channels, you can probably imagine just reach out to people where they actually go check their messages. Some people don't operate on LinkedIn at all. They don't check their messages ever. It's not valuable to reach out to them on there. Some people check Twitter better. Some people check Instagram better. So reach out to people where they're at, in short. And the last thing I'll say is direct mail would be the final, let's say, channel. And I would definitely reach out to people who are a little more old school, a little less online if you want to do direct mail. But it can still be very effective if done correctly. So that is essentially a rundown of all the different channels, which ones I think you should use for any given use case. And I hope this was helpful. And we'll move on to the next module now.